Wetlands have historically been considered as wastelands and therefore drained and filled for agriculture and urbanization. In recent decades, however, there has been an increased appreciation of the socio ecological functions and values provided by wetlands globally as well as nationally. Wetlands in the urban context are of particular importance since urban centers are often characterized by an acute shortage of clean air, water, and natural recreational spaces. Although subject to many kinds of stresses, urban wetlands still provide many functions and services that include the provision of habitat for important bird, fish, and wildlife species and recreational, educational, and aesthetic values, which are particularly important considering the little natural habitat available in cities. World over, it has been demonstrated that the flows, structures, and ecosystem processes that occur in urban wetlands occur nowhere else in nature. 2nd February being World Wetlands Day, the Center for Urban Ecology and Sustainability at Ambedkar University, Delhi will walk you through a regular day in the life of a researcher involved in the restoration and conservation of an urban wetland located in Dhirpur, New Delhi.
So the genesis of Dhirpur project, I would think, goes all the way back to 2010 when the um, SEAC, which is a expert committee of the Delhi government, JNCT Delhi, which was um looking at some of the petitions that were in front of them, came to this part of the city. They recommended unanimously that this particular area, what you see around here, um, Dhirpur and adjoining low-lying areas should not be committed for high-density housing. They were of the opinion that this area, being low-lying as it is, and had several small wetlands, um, and they were able to clearly say it in their report that this region still performs significant hydrological functions and has a biodiversity that is akin to or amenable to be restored and conserved. So this recommendation of the SESC, which came to the Delhi government at that point of time, and then was taken up with a meeting at the highest levels in the Delhi Development Authority, led to a change in the land use demarcation for this area, and they managed to convert this area from high density housing and developing this area for housing to as a green space. It was converted into parks and green space. I think at a subsequent decision, I think somewhere around 2014, the land adjoining to the Dhirpur wetland site where we are standing today was allocated to the Ambedkar University, upcoming Ambedkar University campus, which also is mandated to have an ecologically meaningful design without too much wetlands or green area being occupied, and probably it will go vertical. So they were this kind of an advisory was already there in the SCSC that it should be given to some institutions that do not require covering of large areas and paving and so on and so forth. As the main campus land was allocated to Ambedkar University around 2014, this area, that is about 25.38 hectares, was it was to be conserved and restored into wetlands, and this was to be done. It was decided that at the highest level, at the level of the Lieutenant Governor and the Vice Chairman DDA, and also Secretary Higher Education, all these people were this decision was taken at the highest level, that this will be done through the instrument of an MOU, a management agreement between Delhi Development Authority and the university, Ambedkar University. In 2015, the MOU was signed, and there was a foundation stone ceremony which happened here. Which it was the foundation stone was laid by the DDA Vice Chairman at that time, and then we moved into this area and started working. Within the institution, the work was assigned to CUES in 2015, and we formally took possession of the site only in 2016. The DPR was submitted in 2015, and 2016 we started work here.
Now we shall present to you some of the periodic surveying and monitoring activities that we conduct at our Dhirpur Wetland Project site. Using surveying equipment such as binoculars, spotting scopes, range finders, cameras, and field guides, researchers at the center conduct surveys fortnightly to estimate the abundance and diversity of avifaunal species.
So among the various functions that are performed by wetlands, one of the functions is that they provide habitat to a number of bird species, and in wetlands you have both terrestrial as well as water birds. And here we are at the Dhirpur Wetland Project site, which is a restoration project. And when the project began in 2015, we saw that there were around 50 to 60 bird species that were found in and around these wetlands. And as the project has progressed, we've seen a steady increase in the number of bird species. And so today we have around 110 species of birds. Wetlands are important because they not only provide breeding grounds for several bird species, but they're also stopover for migratory birds. And in this water body that you see beside me, we had three species of birds which nested: spot-billed ducks, we had grebes, and we also had the common moorhen.
Insects have been adapting successfully in almost every part of the world, occupying a range of habitats including urban wetlands. They are involved in various ecological interactions, something which is evident by their numbers, diversity, and adaptability to changing and novel environmental conditions.
Wetlands are reservoirs of many of the insects. For example, dragonfly, we happen to see them flying and hovering around on on many of the places above water, but they do spend most of their time in water because the larval or the nymphal stages are indeed in water because they lay their eggs in water. So this is how we used to collect. We can see many of the larval stages of the insects. So to complete the life cycles of many of the insects, which can be used as biocontrol agent, which can be used as an indicator of wetlands or for any kind of ecosystem, they spend most of the time, many of them, they spend the time in the water in the form of larvae, in the form of nymphs. So indeed, wetlands are indeed a reservoir of many of the diversity.
So the Dhirpur Wetland Project site actually lies in the riverine tract of the Yamuna and has a history of marshes. So it was subject, it's a low-lying tract, and it was subject to regular inundation before the creation of the Burari Dam and the Outer Ring Road. So the vegetation of this kind of an area is characterized by the tamarix forests. So, following the earthwork in the Deepur wetland project site, avenues were created and a bioscreen consisting of the first layer of poplar and the second layer of bamboos were created. So, and after that, several native tree species were planted in the project site.
Presently, the Dhirpur Wetland Project site has at least 55 native species of trees belonging to 22 families and at least 15 different species of grasses and 25 species of annual and perennial herbs and several species of native sedges.
So, as the biotic conditions of the Deepur wetland project site began improving, several associates of the tamarix have begun regenerating on their own in the wetland, and which is this vegetation type is actually a characteristic feature of the Yamuna river basin and creates a heterogeneous habitat for several faunal as well as avifaunal species.
Soil is an important abiotic factor which plays an important role in biogeochemical cycles sustaining biological productivity and nutrient levels. It is also home to a large number of soil microorganisms. Wetland soils are classified as hydric soils which are formed under conditions of saturation and flooding which occurs long enough during the growing season and leads to the development of anaerobic conditions supporting the growth of plant species that are adapted to saturated, inundated and low oxygen conditions. Thus, a regular monitoring of soil properties and quality helps in evaluating the health of soil and soil biota, biological productivity, nutrient levels and other wetland ecosystem functions. The water and sediment quality are major determinants of the biotic composition, nutrient levels, and the hydrological connectivity in the aquatic ecosystem. The parameters not only help in understanding the effect of physiochemical properties on the functioning of wetlands, but also helps to capture spatial heterogeneity caused due to nutrient inputs, vegetation, and periphyton communities. Thus, a periodic sampling is done to monitor the water quality as the range of values help in assessing integrity as well as the water body impairment of the wetland.
One of the core values of the center is ensuring the involvement of the local community for the long-term sustainability of the city. The center also seeks to establish connections with schools and colleges through short-term internships, field visits, and educational tours to foster conservation values and sensitize students about nature in the city.
Since our humble beginnings back in 2015, and then we started working on site extensively in 2016, we have come a long way. We've had a substantial amount of success. As you can see, site has shown phenomenal amount of recovery, and I mean, we have been sort of monitoring the various parameters. However, some logistical challenges remain. This is an MOU project with the DDA, and as per our original understanding, there is a lot of desilting work that is required because as is characteristic of urban soils, there is enormous nutrient load in the sediments. So in the absence of this desilting effort, and which also includes some of the rubble and malva that was deposited here, basically to backfill the wetland, perhaps maybe 2 or 3 decades ago, unless some of that is removed and the depth of the water body is increased, it may be difficult to retain open water surfaces. And this is a part ecological problem in the sense that wetlands tend to be successional and turn into woodlands over a period of time. And there is always this loss of open water bodies. So that's one challenge, and I think we are still working closely with the DD officials, and there is actually a project which is ongoing. I mean, it's in the discussions, and if it comes through, there will be some kind of a desilting process that has to happen. In addition to that, we do have some very operational kind of challenges. This is a large, fairly big area in the middle of the city. It's about 60 acres. The area does not have a sufficient amount of enclosure, in the sense that the walls are about 60% of the walls. There is no wall. So as a result, we struggle to prevent people from coming. Feral dogs from occasionally coming in and raiding the nests of water birds and ground nesting birds and so on. So on one side, there is this issue of desilting and creation of sequential wetlands. We have made some water bodies that are which we could from our own resources, but there's a lot of earthwork that is still pending there. So there's some of that work which we are actually stumbling with. We are struggling because we do not have that kind of resources. And also this physical infrastructure such as gates and certain things that are required here to securitize the site. So these kinds of problems are there, and we are looking forward to several aspects of this project. We want to have some kind of a nature education center here, so that we already have received nearly 800 college students in the last 2 years or so, because after the site has come up, in order to facilitate the communication, have a more meaningful interaction. So far, we are operating from the field station, but we could have a small station here by which you can do demonstrations and have active, seminars and things like that. So there's a lot of exciting stuff to look forward to, and we are also looking for more volunteership. So far, what you see behind is basically with the help of a very small team and a number of volunteers who have participated in plantation activities, survey work, and so on. So I think with good volunteer support and some resource support coming from the agencies that you're working with, we should be able to come up with a really good wetland restoration model for the city.